If we go back to the PSD, his are very simple, but there is some nice styling there. I'm going to press Z to zoom in a few clicks. First thing I can see is it's a blackish background. So I will select right here, and that will bring up an eyedropper tool. And then I can bring it over the text, click, and that will change to the current color. So I will select that, copy it, and now I can use that as the background. But how do we target that anchor tag? We certainly don't want to apply it to all anchor tags. And if we come back, we remember that we applied a class of button. So let's do that as well. All button elements will have a background of this color. Now if I reload, there it is, but there's not enough spacing. So we should use padding for that. Let's see about how much he used. I'm going to get my helpful ruler, select it to the end, and it looks like about 6 pixels worth. 6 pixels. One more time, reload. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now, obviously, the default when you hover over an anchor is black. That doesn't look good. Why don't we make it white in this case? Button, hover, color, white. There we go. That looks good. Now, it looks like he has also set the text a little bit smaller, but we can verify that. And we should do that in general. What is the default font size? I'll select the text tool, select some text, and then I'll come up right here. And now we can see the information. He's got a font of Arial, and the font size he selected is 13 pixels with a line height of 20. Let's add that in right now. We can override the text.css file that was supplied. We can add it to text.css if we want, or if you'd prefer, you can work within your layout and leave that blank. In this case, because we're within style.css most of our time, I don't want to confuse you too much. So we'll do it right here within our general. Or you could also have this in a typography section. Font size, 13 pixels. Line height is going to be 20 pixels. Notice that we're just going to the Photoshop file, getting the values and transferring them over. That's all we're doing here. Reload, and now it looks a little bit different, but the line height has been increased. Next, what about the default color? That's not hard black, and it has a color of 3535. So let's specify that as well. All paragraph has a color. Now, if you want that to be the default color across the board, you could apply that to the body element, but here we're going to limit it to just paragraphs. Reload, and now that's been reduced. But what about headings? Is he keeping the same color as well? And once again, I'm going to select this text, choose the color, and it does appear that he's using black as well. If we also look here, we can see that he has a really high line height set up, but we don't want to do that within HTML because if your heading does break onto a new line, that means every single sentence is going to have that huge spacing. So what we should do is add some padding below it instead. And it looks like he's also set the letter spacing reduced as well. So we will come back. Let's specify that H1 tags have letter spacing of -1 pixel. And we're going to set the same thing to H2s. And while we're at it, if we come back, notice that I did use H1 tags here. I think that's probably not the best choice. I'm going to reduce this to H2, and I think that'll be a little bit cleaner. And that's reduced, so we need to figure out what the exact size is and also make the text smaller. In this case, the font size is 26, so I'm going to add that in. H2, font size is 26 pixels. Also, we're going to do text transform, lowercase. There we go, that's looking very good. The next thing that I see as I'm working through this, we're eventually going to get to our banner, but at the very top, that header is really close to the top, so I think I would prefer to have a little breathing room. So we can do that right at the top, container 24, and we'll give it a margin top. Let's start with 10, and we're mostly using our eye, but I think that's cleaner, just a little more breathing room. Good, and next let's add the spacing below the headers, because notice, remember, he had a lot of room and then an underline. And what color is this underline? I'm going to zoom in really close, select the eyedropper tool by pressing I or Shift I a couple times. And if I click it, now this color has been selected, and that's what I know my divider should be set to. So let's try this out because it might take a little bit of tinkering. We'll assume that all H2 tags will receive this styling. If you want to limit it to only within the main section, you could do that as well. Border, bottom, 1 pixel, solid, this color. And what you'll see when we do this is it's right underneath, but we need to stretch that out. So if we were to set padding bottom to 30 pixels, you see that gets pushed down quite a bit. And that's why you need to come to your file and measure exactly what it needs to be. If I select right there, it is around 27. And then after it, there's some more spacing of around 15. So let's adjust this, 27. And the margin will be affected underneath the border, like so. And now if we come back, we can see that that lines up. I might have measured a little too high, so I will reduce that back down to maybe 24 or maybe 20. You can play around with it. I think that looks good though. All right.